What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 36 of the Sports Hour Plus with Miller and Watson, featuring Clarence Taylor III, the Honorable Trey in for Morgan today. I know y'all, we just got her back, and the Olympics are taking her away. She might join us later, but you're rocking out with me and Trey today. So, welcome to episode 36. The Olympics are coming 2 days from now, or if you're a rugby and soccer fan, today it started. So Trey, what's up? How you doing, man?
I'm feeling good. Summer was good. I had a nice little vacation. I guess that was last week or
Something
or
like
the
that.
or the end of last week. So 2 weeks ago I was on vacation in Florida. So a good time with family and friends, and good to be. It is one of those things where you go on vacation, you're like, it's nice to get back in my own bed though. Um, so yeah, I'm good though.
That's good, man. That's good. Definitely welcome, y'all. And we were just talking about it off air, but it's officially the year anniversary. Now, for those of you that don't know, you might have tuned into this show. You might be all like, how did Kylan and Morgan come together? Well, like I just told Trey off air, today we did a broadcast um, in Stamford, Connecticut, and that spurned a podcast. The dynamic was so great that people like Trey and other people in Morgan's life were like, yo, y'all should do something with this. And so 36 episodes later and a couple of months later, here we are, the Sports Hour Plus with Miller and Watson, happening mostly every week, unless something happens. A weekly podcast that we hope you guys enjoy. We're able to bring our friends together, bring people that we know in the industry and beyond that, as Trey can attest to this, to bring y'all some sports knowledge from all over the country, various sports fandom. I mean, more people are Philly fans, but obviously you've got Morgan, that's a New York fan, and everything that comes with that. So definitely happy anniversary to myself and Morgan, and to all of you, because you've been rocking it out with us from this broadcast. And now some of y'all might not know the backstory of this, but there it is, broadcast in Stamford, Connecticut, that happened a year ago today, this morning, and podcast. So here we are. And definitely don't forget to follow Morgan at at M_India_Miller. Kylan at Kylan W. Watson on X/Twitter, and Trey, he's more active on Instagram at Mr. Taylor 3 eyes. So definitely make sure you follow him. Follow his YouTube as well, which I'm sure he will connect y'all to in a minute. But that's what we call a tease in our business, ladies and gentlemen. But we got to start with the breaking news. For those of you that have been under a rock, or maybe you've been away from Twitter today, the worst kept secret in journalism and in sports and entertainment finally came out. The NBA and WNBA confirmed their new broadcast deals with ESPN, NBC, and Amazon. For you older millennials like myself, NBA on NBC is back. Maybe we can get some inside stuff. Let's peer pressure NBC to bring back inside stuff. That's what we all grew up on. Let's peer pressure NBC to bring it back. You know, ESPN, NBC, and Amazon confirmed NBA, WNBA, like we talked about last week, a 11-year, $76 billion deal for the NBA. I believe a 4-year, couple of year, $2.2 billion deal for the WNBA. So all told, 76 billion, 2.2 billion, $78.2 billion for the NBA, between going to the NBA or the MNBA for some of you WNBA fans, and the WNBA. So, I'm going to let Trey go through this. Trey, what's your reaction to this? It's finally confirmed, the worst kept secret in journalism and then sports entertainment, like I just said. How are you feeling about this?
I mean, I think and I you would probably agree with me. I think the most exciting thing is NBC, because we all know there's a lot of nostalgia there for those who grew up, and I can't remember when that deal initiated,
90s,
80
early
something.
2000s.
But I mean, if you remember watching basketball from the mid to early 90s through the 2000s up until I think that deal ended 20.
Yeah,
Was it 2009 or 2010?
It was like
Or was it
03,
before that?
04. Yeah, it was
But
03.
whenever
It was
that
like,
ended, people
yeah.
loved the NBA on NBC, and a lot of people miss that. So I'm glad to see that back. Amazon, I'm not too high on. For those who are multi-sport fans, the Amazon has, I believe it's Thursday Night Football, and the broadcasts can be good. Some, in my opinion, they're a little bit hit or miss sometimes. More so on the commentating standpoint, as opposed to from like a presentation standpoint. But so we'll see how that kind of works out. But I believe Amazon is just going to be the WNBA. Am I right with that, Kylan? Or is that going to be? Are they going to be doing some NBA stuff
they're
as
all
well?
partners in all of it. NBA,
Okay, gotcha.
NBA, WNBA, same three partners.
Right.
CBS might be in there for like local rights and stuff. There's obviously local TV
Yeah.
rights for the WNBA and NBA, but most of that ends up on NBC if you're in a bigger market locally. Obviously, for you Sixers fans, it's NBC Sports Philadelphia, SNY in New York. It all winds up being, if you watch your local basketball team, more than likely you're watching it on an NBC affiliate. So depending on, especially if you're in a big city, you're watching it on an NBC affiliate. So it hasn't really, like, what you get now, what should happen, again, I have no inside knowledge on this, but what should happen is what we all are used to, if you watch it locally, should go nationally as well. Obviously on NBC, it'll be on the cable channels, the regular NBC channel, the USA Network, I believe as well, and Peacock. Obviously the big thing, Trey, I don't know, were you done?
Hey, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, so the biggest winner to me in this deal, Adam Silver, man. I said this a few months ago, as all of y'all who watch this show remember me saying, like, I said that this NBA deal would make the NFL jealous, and I know it has. Like, I said that everybody was like, oh, but the NBA doesn't really have the audience that the NFL does. You don't really need the audience. When, like I said, you literally have the monopoly on 18 to 40-year-olds. Like, when your audience is that in demand, when no one else can command the audience that the NBA has, that's the end-all be-all right there. And that's what allows you to get a $78.2 billion deal, right? That's what creates all of that. And I'm the biggest winner is Adam Silver, obviously. Like, it's only the NBA that can be like, all right, forget WB. We accept that challenge. They say they don't want us. Forget it. And we'll go with Amazon. Like, I mean, if you read the finer details of the deal, Amazon's going to build like an NBA, basically an NBA main day all the time. So think of it like an SNF or a TNF, as Trey brought up, for marquee NBA games. And I said this a long time ago, as Trey remembers me saying, because he was on the show. Disney, you should be on the lookout, because you see how NBC and Amazon sold it to the NBA. We're going to build our whole programming around you. We're not going to care about the NFL. The NFL has Sunday night, but every other week we'll build it around you. I know that NBC, from what the public details are, it seems like there's going to be an NBA red zone. Y'all guess is as good as mine how that's going to work, because there's really no red zone. So maybe an NBA inside the paint. I don't really know how that's going to work, but I mean, they're going to try and build it. So I mean, this is how it's going to go, right? So I say, if you're Disney, you really got to, because it's not going to be long before maybe Apple or Netflix is busting ESPN out of here, because we know NBC and Amazon are not going to try to lose these rights. And, like I said, Adam Silver's the biggest winner, NBA, WNBA. I mean, more power to you. I mean, look, who else can like take the power of streaming and just put it together for 82 plus games but the NBA? I mean, I think other sports leagues need to pay attention to this. This is what happens when you have an in-demand audience.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you, and I think is a great comparison, to talk about the NFL, because everybody knows, and we'll kind of talk about this later, but everybody knows that the commissioner of the NFL is less than favorable. And you talk about somebody like Adam Silver, who I don't know if we have approval numbers for the NBA commissioner or not, but he's generally been, in my opinion, has been looked upon very favorably. And because he started off so well with the whole Donald Sterling situation. And so when you look at the two, you kind of compare the two, you're like, I mean, it makes sense that Adam Silver is making is making the NFL jealous because he got the better deal when it comes to TV rights. And he has, at the end of the day, he has the better, or maybe not better league necessarily, but the league that the people watch the most, right? People are watching the NBA, and I think probably in recent years more than they have in the past. There was a kind of a pocket of time where I think things were kind of getting a little shaky with the NBA, but yeah, I mean,
but even that was because they weren't really like the rights, the way they were doing TV wasn't accounting for, again. And then Trey and I are very representative of this age group, that 18 to 40 demographic.
Correct.
That's not watching all the time on TV, that are streaming the game legally and illegally. Like,
right.
You know, and the TV ratings weren't getting that. And that's what I would tell all these sports fans that were all like, look, the NBA's down. I'm all like, the NBA's down, but it's still doing better than an NFL game on a Thursday night. So,
correct.
Like it's like, it's a whole, it's in the eye of the beholder thing. And I mean, we got to get to the WB of it all before we get to anything else. So those that don't know, WB kind of struck out. They said they matched the rights. NBA came out a few minutes ago and said they did not. Now, it's basically a they said here, because the NBA is like, y'all not matching the $1.9 billion. WB is saying 1.8 is close enough, blah, 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 blah. Who do you believe? Whatever. This is going to be great. Eventually, we'll probably get a lawyer on because this is where this is headed. So they're mad because NBA went with Amazon, confirmed this deal, and now WBD is like Warner Brothers Discovery. For those of you that don't know, it's like, well, we want these rights. They put out a statement just recently, a few minutes ago, that they're ignoring the audience that's on TNT. That audience are like, if they're hardcore b-ball fans like I am, like I don't know about you, Trey, but I feel like I liked Inside the NBA better when I was younger and like had more things to do than I do now. Because when I watch national games on TNT, I get so mad at some of the stuff that they do. And like, this might be my inside sports media knowledge of how I feel about it. But like, I do like Ernie Johnson. I sometimes can stand Shaq and Charles Barkley's dynamic. I think the most entertaining analyst on that halftime show is probably, Kenny, because he at least gives you some basketball. Everything else is just Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal beefing at each other. I'm not so I say all that to say I'm not going to miss it, but I might be in the minority here because, like I said, I'm in the field. I watch the games. I'm hardcore. I watch it on mute. So like when they go to halftime, Trey knows this because he's been there and seen me do it. Like I watch the halftime show on mute and do something else until the game starts again, depending on what it is. So that's just me. I know some of y'all are weeping for it. You're gonna have all these memories, whatever. I'm not gonna be little with y'all like, but I'm just gonna say that I'm not gonna miss it. I think between NBC, ESPN, and Amazon, they'll have enough. It probably won't be called Inside the NBA, and hopefully with a different. And I don't want to disrespect the people that do this at Warner Sports, because Trey and I both know people that do that show or work for that company. So I don't want to disrespect them. But I think that that show should have been reined in a long time ago, and so I'm not going to miss it. But
I'd say though, I would definitely say that the average sports fan loves that show. I'm not from a NBA analytics standpoint, but I do love that show because for me it's just it's funny. The banter between Shaq and, I mean, obviously the three of them, but in particular the banter between Shaq and Charles is great. Like just them going back and forth. And I don't know. It seems like they just have a really. It's clear that they have a really, really great relationship, the four of them. I don't know. There was I guess it was a podcast or interview that they did, I guess last week, where they were talking about, how long they've known each other, and they were talking about when Ernie was diagnosed with lymphoma. So I don't know. I think for the average sports fan who's not, more so like us, who are a lot more knowledgeable about sports and well, I shouldn't even say knowledgeable about sports, just more analytical minded when it comes to sports. Those people that are not like that definitely enjoy that show because they're thinking about it from the vantage point of, I'm a fan. I remember, I liked Shaq when he played. I liked Kenny when he played. Chuck and, Ernie is cool. And, they banter back and forth. Cause I know a lot of people who just like, it's like they'll watch it. It's not even like they're watching it because of the fact that they're talking about basketball or it's a halftime show. They're watching it because it's entertaining from just like a comedy standpoint as well. So I do hope that whatever happens with it, I do hope that something similar to it, that they grab those 4 guys and put them on something else. It'll be called something else, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it's a interesting situation for WB because that's a big, on one hand, and this is the financial side of things, it was $1.2 billion that they were shelling out every year, right? So that means $1.2 billion that they now have to do something else with. And for those who are movie fans and are keeping up with what the CEO, David Zaslav, is doing, that is, there's been a lot of canceled TV shows and movies in the last year or so. A lot of beloved shows and movies have been pulled off of their streaming service, which was previously called HBO Max, rebranded as now Max. But there's $1.2 billion that's sitting there that was in the budget for NBA on TNT that could potentially be used for something else. And the question is, what is that? I don't know what it will be.
They already tell you what they're doing. They go and they dive into college sports. You see it.
They can dive into college sports, but at the same time, I mean, that is still I'm saying it's $1.2 billion that can be utilized elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that they'll have something, but I mean, this is the ultimate, mess around and find out. David Zaslav said they didn't need the NBA, and Adam Silver said bet. So I mean, we're about to find out. Obviously, there's still some legal hurdles here. I'm very much sure, like I said, because WB said it, like that they are going to sue the NBA. So we will see. Like I said last week, the NBA has a legal record that the NFL and a lot of other sports leagues wish they had. They don't lose. So they don't lose in court. Now, there's always a first time for everything, but I doubt that they will lose because ultimately, kind of like what's going on with Florida State and Clemson and all these other teams that are trying to get out of deals, I can't see how any court would force the NBA to be like, you have to take WB's deal, especially once they introduce into the record that David Zaslav, the president, who probably should be fired after this, if I'm a WB shareholder, I mean, completely unbiased here. My man's getting y'all a congressional investigation. Like I said a few months ago, Congress doesn't agree on much. This is I hate to get in political, but these are just facts, right? This is the worst Congress of all time. Hasn't done anything. All they've done is probably avoided shutdowns and passed a few bills, right? So, this is the worst Congress ever. But they've got Republicans and Democrats to agree that what David Zaslav is doing with these canceled shows and writing them off for tax breaks is a monstrosity. Because I'm pretty sure, and Trey's more into that side than I am, on that side of media than I am. But I'm pretty sure that before this, not many people, unless you were in accounting of most of these movie studios and TV studios, you could do that, right? Did you know they could do that? Just cancel shows and write it off as a tax break? You probably did because you're an accountant, so you might have known that already.
I mean, yeah, from a certain vantage point, yes, because it's an each. So how most, especially at that size, most productions are their own LLC. So they're their own LLC that fall under Warner Brothers Discovery, and so in theory you can write off the majority of those expenses as business expenses, and you get these giant tax write-offs because you've got, let's say something like Lord have mercy, the show that Jonathan Nolan, the Western Westworld,
Westworld. Yeah.
Westworld was really good show. People love that show. It's now gone. Like that was one of your top shows on your streaming platform, and now it's gone.
Now, to be fair, that show was on there because that was on HBO. I think that show stopped when, like 4 or 5 years ago. So to be fair, I believe
perhaps I can't remember, but
I believe that show stopped 4 or 6 years ago. So it was on like HBO Go. For those of you that are HBO, like if you were in school during Game of Thrones, everybody used HBO Go. So like there was HBO Go, obviously, and then there was HBO Max, and obviously, like I just said, unless you were, as Trey is, an accountant and on the entertainment side, outside of that, you probably didn't know that people could do that. And this man wrote off, like, stop me if you heard this before. He wrote off a John Cena movie, Warner, what was it, Acme versus Warner or something, that movie. That was a John Cena movie he wrote off. He wrote off the Batgirl movie, which I think was a real good movie. I believe he messed up so bad on that I think the director, the writers, everybody was like, this is a good movie. We just got approved. And then he canceled it for a tax break. Like, I just want to say, for any TV company, to me, from the outside looking in, I know some of y'all who watch this show, y'all have varying degrees of stuff. So maybe some of y'all are Warner Brothers shareholders. But I'm just saying, the amount of screw-ups that's happening here, and this man just cost you $1.9 billion, I think he should be fired. Like, why he's not him is going to be David Zaslav this week, because I definitely think he should be fired. I think he should have been fired a couple of years ago when they were talking about they were going to investigate Warner Brothers Discovery for what he was doing with writing stuff off. I definitely think he should be fired now. I'm just of the mindset that you mess around and find out. Like, NBC did the same thing with Dick Ebersol. They told him, get on out of here once he lost the NBA. That's what WB should do. I'm just spitballing here. Like, my man's costing you $2 billion plus legal fees for going to court and trying to sue the NBA to do something that he screwed up. I'm just saying, like, I am of the mindset that that's unforgivable to me. But I just don't know. So what do you think? What do you think WB is gonna?
I mean, so here's the thing, right? And you've heard this saying, and I'm sure those who are, if you're watching, you've heard this saying, in order to make money, you got to spend money, right? Mm-hmm. So here's the thing about some of the projects that were canceled or pulled off of streaming services is that those projects had the potential to make a profit. I was just looking at some of Warner Brothers financials, and they've been kind of hit or miss. They're not great from a profit standpoint. But they have good, and this is just my, like, by quickly glancing at this, it seems like they have relatively good cash flow. So for those who are not financially savvy, essentially cash flow is how much cash you got in the bank. And are you constantly going into the negative in your bank account? Or are you just generally kind of, are you and maybe Warner Brothers Discovery is going paycheck to paycheck, or maybe they got $100 in the bank account. Obviously it's not $100 after every paycheck, whatever, and after they pay the bills. But Warner Brothers is not like, they're not flailing by any stretch of the imagination. So my point in saying that is, you look at the situation and you say, okay, had Zaslav not canceled some of these projects and they profited, which, yeah, obviously no project is guaranteed to have profit. But when you talk about something like a Looney Tunes production, that's a nostalgia project that I think a lot of people our age, millennials or older Gen Z people would have, and maybe even some of the older crowd that watched the Looney Tunes way back in the day, back in, I guess that was what, the 60s, 70s.
Yeah, the boomers.
That would have, but for those who are our age in our 20s and, mid to late 20s and 30s, we watched Looney Tunes growing up, and there was the live action Looney Tune movies that came out in the 2000s. So that's just one example of a project that, could have had a relatively low budget, right, and could have turned a profit and it's not going to be 1 billion, but maybe it's a $300 million profit, and there's $300 million, right? The amount he said that they wanted for NBA on TNT was 1.9, and they were like, 1.8 is good. So I mean, 300 more million puts you at 1.5 billion, because they were saying that they're shelling out 1.2 billion already. So I mean, you get a couple projects over the course of a year or 2 years if you're planning ahead and you're a good CEO, unlike Zaslav, right? Maybe you can put away funds to be able to make that deal happen, and clearly they didn't. So
I have this is the last I'm going to do about going in on David Zaslav before we get to the end of this show. I always thought that they hired the wrong CEO. I always thought it was stupid of them to put somebody who's good at reality TV over a multimedia company, because all David Zaslav is good at is reality TV. Like the John and Kate +8, all you people that watch like anything under Discovery, that was him. I'm not really a reality TV show person, but I know a good portion of our age group grew up on John and Kate +8, Honey Boo Boo, and all that other stuff that people watched on the Discovery Channel. Hoarders,
TLC reality stuff,
like Hoarders. I did like Hoarders. All that stuff. More than likely, if you liked a reality TV show and it was on TLC, it was probably because of David Zaslav. So when somebody specializes in one thing, like I said, Trey can more speak to this in general because he's in finances. But generally, you don't want to put somebody who's only good at one thing as the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. And I always said that what they should have did and who should have been CEO of HBO was the dude that runs HBO, right? Oh, I'm sorry, who should have been over Warner is Casey Bloys, who I think runs HBO right now for them. I mean, this is a dude they put out, like Trey just said, Westworld, Game of Thrones, the vampire show that all y'all like that I didn't really like, True Blood. Like, he approved all that. That Jonathan Majors series that put him on the map that they canceled. That was all him. Like, I am about that Watchmen series. Like, Casey Bloys has that type. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing his name. I don't know. I feel like I'm pronouncing it right, but if I'm not, I apologize to the Bloys family if I'm not pronouncing his name right. But Casey Bloys, I think, was the person to put in front and over Warner because he was a known guy. He's dealt with multimedia stuff that comes with dealing with HBO instead of the reality TV show guy that's losing y'all money. I'm just saying.
And this is the last thing I'll say. I agree with you because I don't know too much about Casey Bloys, but from a filmmaking standpoint, there is a distinction in that world between somebody who does narrative content and non-narrative content, or more the way I really should say it is scripted versus non-scripted content, meaning essentially reality TV, news versus your favorite DC or Marvel movie or whatever the case may be, because that content is scripted. And as Kylan mentioned, Zaslav's background is in non-scripted content, and the majority of the content that he cut off of HBO Max was scripted content, ironically. So it's an interesting thing. We'll see where this takes WB. I think on one hand, it'll affect, obviously it's going to affect where they use that money. But I don't think this is going to I don't think WB is going in the ground, but we'll see what happens. And maybe like Kylan is saying, maybe Zaslav is out, in the next year.
He should be. Again, I'm not a Warner Brothers shareholder, but I said it was going to be my last thing. I lied. But if you're a Warner Brothers shareholder, and you're losing money like this, and then you're losing for lack of a better term, your cash cow. Like, now the question here is, we can get to the next question, but what will not having the NBA mean for Warner Bros. Discovery? It means there's no reason to watch TNT unless you like Supernatural or Charmed or any of the old stuff, Arrow, any of the old WB content that's on that show. And let me not be disrespectful. It's about to become, like I said a few weeks ago, the hockey, baseball, and wrestling channel. That's what it's going to be. Like, if you like hockey, baseball, and wrestling, that's going to be your channel.
I agree. And it's going to go back to, I mean, it is now still during the, when there's no sports, it's a movie channel or TV show channel. And that's what it mostly is. I think the good thing, though, for Warner Brothers is, as you mentioned, college sports, because while it won't be on TNT, TBS is massive when it comes to college basketball and March Madness. So they still have that, luckily. But TNT is not going to die because they don't have an NBA on TNT. That was one small portion of what TNT is. They still are, have many rights. They still have the rights to the entire Warner Brothers / HBO catalog, and the Discovery catalog if they choose to. So they have.
Stay away from that Discovery catalog.
Well, they won't play any Discovery catalog on TNT. I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying they have access to that entire catalog. So, I mean, I think I just said it maybe 5 minutes ago, but losing the NBA is a big deal from a basketball standpoint if they want to capture that crowd
and a money standpoint.
But at the same time, and I know this firsthand from somebody who works in marketing at Warner and for the NHL, is that they are really trying to grow that department in terms of marketing stuff. So I think they'll probably lean
have their chance now.
Right. And I think they'll have their right. You're right. They'll have their chance to kind of lean into other sports and see where that goes.
Right. And ultimately, because we skipped this question because I just couldn't help myself with David Zaslav. But what do these new deals mean for the future of both leagues / the future of basketball? I think the state of basketball is very healthy. Like we said, it's LeBron, Steph, and KD. I'm not saying that they're done, but they're basically in their last hurrah. And you have your next new crop of stars of Joel. I don't even want to say next new because some of these stars I'm about to mention have been stars for a while. But you've got Joel Embiid, you've got Anthony Edwards, you've got a Tyrese Maxey, you've got people on the rise, you've got a Devin Booker, you've got all of this talent, Jalen Brunson, and all these up and coming or already there superstars. And obviously, let me not be disrespectful on the WNBA side, you've got Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. If that ever, we'll get to the All-Star game in the next segment, but if both of those people if both Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese ever get together outside of a Team USA at an All-Star game, bro, like they actually wind up on the same team, that might be unfair. Like that might be a cheat code. Like the last time we were together, you talked about 2K. That's a cheat code, bro. like Angel Reese, Aaliyah Boston, and Caitlin Clark on the same team might be a cheat code. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I think the future of both leagues and the future of basketball is very strong, as these deals certainly tell you. And obviously the NBA, because the NBA owns both leagues, is clearly making a bet behind the future of streaming, or at least that their audience is savvy and smart enough to already have Peacock, Prime, and Disney Plus. Obviously, I don't think they will ever put an NBA game on Disney Plus. But, you never know. We said the same thing about the NFL and Peacock, and that was a smashing success. But you never know. So, I don't think that they will, but, you never know. So, I think that they think that their audience is, if they're not already economically savvy enough to have all three, they're making that big bet on streaming.
No, I agree with you completely. Like the NBA, I think some of the NBA Finals game series have not been the most exciting. Don't shoot me, but I think in general we've seen some of the most exciting basketball we've ever seen in the last 4 to 5 years. Like, I mean, even going back to the bubble year, I mean, that was some absolutely great basketball that we saw. I mean, because there was no travel, so people they were fresh, 100% fresh legs every night.
It was all basketball all the time. If it wasn't that, if you weren't watching like WNBA and NBA players play a horse. You're watching them play 2K together, and you were all
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Dang,
right.
everybody plays 2K, huh?"
So,
Yeah.
so for the NBA, I think it's it's the sky's the limit, obviously. And for the WNBA, I think it's a similar scenario. There's a few caveats. I would say one, whoever does the scheduling for the WNBA from a broadcasting standpoint, they need to do a better job. I think there's too many.
Spread those games out. Yeah, there's too
Spread the
many.
games out. There's too many times where, especially once we get to football season, there's too many times where there's a major WNBA game going on at the same time as like a prime time NFL game. That just doesn't make any sense. Find a better time, you know. So that and then just from a finance standpoint, the majority of the NBA, the WNBA teams do not turn a profit. If you don't know, the NBA shells out, I don't know how many millions of dollars every year for the WNBA.
Well, they're making a profit now.
I don't know if any of the teams are, but my prediction is that within the next 5 years, I think the WNBA will be. I think it will actually be able to stand on its own without any cash inflow from the NBA because of, as we mentioned, as Kylan mentioned, in the NBA, you have these kind of new influx of stars. In the WNBA, you also have that as well. And I think because of how the way these new stars are coming into the league, with the NIL deals, they've already got, deals with major brands and all this type of stuff, and they come into the league as pretty much already superstars. That alone brings eyes and butts in seats, and that that raises ticket prices, that causes teams to reschedule games at a bigger stadium. For example, I might be wearing a Philadelphia Eagles Brian Dawkins jersey, but I live in Atlanta, and I think it was sometime in June, and then also next month on the 26th, the Indiana Fever come to Atlanta to play the Atlanta Dream. Instead, the Atlanta Dream have their own stadium in I think it's technically College Park, literally right next to the airport.
So you know better than me.
But because Caitlin Clark is coming into town, they've shifted that. Both of those games have been shifted to State Farm Arena where the Hawks play, because it's people want to see Caitlin Clark play, and I believe the game in June sold out. Right, I don't think any of the tickets were less than like $60. This is a WNBA game. Think about that, right? The most expensive tickets, I think, like courtside seats, were like $2,000. You don't see that at WNBA games most of the time. And so as far as the future, man, it truly is, sky is the limit. As long as I think if they get that scheduling right and they're able to get some prime time slots, maybe for some of these key matchups, especially when it comes to playoff time, man, it's going to be good.
Cool, man. I agree. I just got a text from Morgan. She is exhausted, so it's a good thing that Trey was able to do this. Yeah, the Olympics, brother. But moving right along, Team USA women's basketball falls to Team WNBA. Trey, what was your reaction? I don't know if you watched this live or just watched the highlights. What's your reaction to this?
I did not watch it live. I did watch the highlights. It's interesting because I hadn't watched this in prior years, and it was interesting because it was almost like I was watching. I don't even know how to put it, but it was good to see players kind of play more free flowing. Obviously, Team USA had a little bit more on the line, but I think it was a solid game. I don't think this has any. We'll get more into this, but I think it was a solid game. Caitlin Clark. Ironically, I saw her highlights, and she didn't really score that much. She was definitely being more of a facilitator. Had a couple of like really, really nice assists.
Yeah, she was
And
definitely in vacation mode during that game.
yes, which for me, I would be too. I think you look at any sport, the All-Star game typically is a more relaxed style of play. And that makes sense because it's really their off week. The time to kind of come together, have some fun, just play a more loose style of basketball. You're probably going to score more points, whatever the case may be. You don't have the pressure of being the best player on the team necessarily and having to put up 30 points every night or whatever the case may be. But I did notice that, there were a couple hard fouls and stuff like that. So that was interesting because that's an unlike, ironically, unlike on the men's side of things. That's very, very unlikely to see a hard foul in an all-star setting. So it was interesting. It was, from the highlights that I saw, it looked pretty good.
Yeah, it was a good game. I was really excited. You could tell that obviously Team USA was taking it very seriously because this was one of their tune-up games heading into the Olympics. And obviously the fireball that was Enrique Agumbawale lit them up. She clearly, I know she said she didn't take it personally because she withdrew herself, but she clearly had that game circled. The way she was acting, and it was very much a star-making performance for her, and that kind of leads into our next question. Before I get there, Angel Reese, first rookie to get a double. Like it was some great showing for some of the young up and coming stars. Obviously, some of the current stars with Enrique Agumbawale, who I said last week famously is having her talents wasted in Dallas. Would be the first superstar to have that talent wasted in Dallas, but I am of the mindset that it was great for her. Good to see Breanna Stewart out there healthy, Jonquel Jones. It was good. It was good to just see everybody together. And obviously we'll get to what the women's side did yesterday against Germany in a minute. But I just kind of answered this question. I'll start it again. But yes, was that a star-making performance by Enrique Agumbawale? Yeah, if you had, and we saw this again. This is why I know Trey and I somewhat disagree here, because he says, and I agree with him, that it's a great thing that women's basketball, especially the WNBA, is well known now. But you have some things that always happen when casuals come into a hardcore space like basketball, and I saw way too many tweets. I had no idea Enrique was like this, or who is this person that Caitlin Clark is passing the ball to? Like, I'm just like, yo, she been nice. She been putting people on posts, not really putting people on posters, but breaking people's ankles since her days in Notre Dame, literally 4 years ago. She is like that. She is a superstar. For those of you that are just getting to know her, welcome to the Enrique Agumbawale fan club. Please be respectful. I've said this before. There's levels to this. And you don't know who a player is, it's okay to just be like, hey, that's a nice player, and no one will. But I saw way too many people getting ratioed and theoretically unalived on socials during this game because a lot of people in there, a lot of them were Notre Dame and Dallas fans because people had no idea who Enrique Agumbawale is. Again, serving my point that her talents are wasted in Dallas and that the WNBA needs to make sure that she gets on more marquee games. Obviously, people knew who she was if they watched her last week fry up Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever just last week. But other than that, people really don't get a chance to see her again, wasting away in Dallas. I'm just saying. But Enrique Agumbawale, that was a star-making performance, superstar, already arrived, had people suggesting that maybe the next time that they play each other, they should keep a spot open, and whoever the MVP is should get that open spot. I actually like that idea, but I think it may have made this game way more competitive than it needed to be for the Team WNBA side, because then you would have had a lot of people jacking up shots for no reason. But I kind of like that idea, but I'll move on over because everybody knows, as Trey knows, I waved at Enrique Agumbawale fan club hat very, very well. I think she's great. Go ahead, Trey. I'll let you go.
No, I mean it is. I mean 34 points. And it was an efficient 34 points. Like, she only had like 20 shots, I think. Um, so it's there's nothing you can really say, but just awesome. She was amazing, right? Um, on a national stage. Um, so I mean, when you talk about casuals, right? Um, I think that happens in a lot of sports. I mean, I think I'm more chronically online than you are, Kylan, when it comes to going through comment sections. I'm on TikTok as well, and I constantly see stuff like that where because it's not just women's sports. I think it happens. I think the misogyny is more, unfortunately, is more common when it comes to women's sports. But the idea that casuals or people who don't actually watch the sport say things without full knowledge of what they're talking about. Like, I've had, people say things about, let's say something, okay, Chauncey Billups, just to throw a name out there. And they're like, oh my, Chauncey Billups, who is Chauncey Billups? Like, did you watch Chauncey Billups play back in the day? Like, Chauncey Billups was a really, really good player. So I think that's always going to be the case. You have people who don't watch the sport or claim to watch the sport but don't actually watch the sport, and they're like, who is this person? Who is she? Or try to, and then you have those people that are going to try to hop on the bandwagon. It is what it is. I don't think it hurts the sport. I think as long as those people become actual legitimate fans, it grows the sport. And I think it, to answer the question directly, whether there are people like myself and you who actually pay attention to the WNBA, or somebody who maybe is just kind of on the outskirts and just happened to see the highlights or turned past it when it was on TV, the chances are that they saw that and they're like, oh, who is Arike Ogunbowale? And they're probably going to be like, oh, she's a WNBA player. And they're going to go watch some highlights. And if they're, just a general basketball fan, they'll probably become somewhat of a fan. So, yes, it was a star-making performance, absolutely, on a national stage in a game that ultimately didn't even really matter at the, for Team WNBA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, she was making news in more ways than one after the game, as most of y'all may have seen, and you might have seen it on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and all this other stuff that, Trey's making a joke that I'm TikTok specifically that I'm too old to be on. My senior citizen. So, it's like, no. So what do we think she meant by saying she withdrew from consideration for Team USA because of politics? Trey, I'll let you go first here.
I don't know. I mean, I think she was being a little bit cryptic. I watched a couple clips of her. She was interviewed on Sports Center. I want to say it was Tuesday. I mean, rather Monday. And she talked about it. She talked about, because there's like there's camps and practice and stuff that you got to go to before you even put onto the team. And I don't know quite what she meant. I'm guessing that there was maybe a racial component to it. Maybe there's some kind of, how do I put it? Kind of just sports in general, where it's kind of like a popularity contest type of situation. So I don't really think that she was talking about like anything like racial or anything like that. I mean, from her own words, she said, when I said politics, I was just referring to sports in general. It's not just women's basketball. There's some great players that just aren't on some teams. So I think sometimes that happens. I think it's akin kind of to how a lot of people say LeBron James should have been MVP every year since he's been in the league, and he hasn't been. And in fact, he hasn't won an MVP since 2012, I think, or 2013. So I think it's one of those situations, and I think maybe it got maybe slightly taken out of context, or maybe it was just a poor use of words initially. She got an opportunity to explain. But at the end of the day, like we've mentioned, she's one of the best players in the league. She had a great performance in the game. Clearly said, all right, I'm not going to be on the team, but I'm going to show you why I should be on the team. Despite the fact that I took myself out of consideration. So I think when she said politics, I think she was using it as like a colloquial term, as we say, the politics of it, that type of word framing.
Mm-hmm. I kind of agree with that, but I also think that, it's kind of like Kyrie Irving kind of said the same thing on the Olympics. He was like, that I should have been on the team. I feel like Enrique is saying the same thing. I feel like, I'm not saying she was talking about this, but I think that, obviously a spot, I don't want to say was guaranteed or say gifted, because I think people might think that I know something that I don't here, but I think that there was a spot that was guaranteed. Well, for lack of a better term, I'll say guaranteed for Diana Taurasi, because this was her last hurrah Olympics, as we've seen. And I think the same thing kind of happened, not even 4 years ago, but 2 years ago in Tokyo with Sue Bird too. I feel like since she's like a point guard / shooting guard, because Diana Taurasi was there, some of those spots, that spot was gifted, and she might feel, again, I'm not in her head or don't know. I don't think she was literally saying Diana Taurasi doesn't deserve to be there. But I've heard plenty of people say that. But, this often happens. As you and I both know, we've watched plenty of Team USA teams, and we've said, hey, such and such in our heads doesn't need to be there. This is their last hurrah Olympics. So kind of like the same thing. I'm not sure this is KD's last Olympics or LeBron's, but, well, specifically, I think it's LeBron's. It's probably more than likely LeBron's last Olympics. He hasn't said that, but, the same thing sort of happened on the men's side. You got people are like, well, where's Kyrie Irving? Why is Jalen Brunson not there? Why is Jaylen Brown not there? Same thing sort of happened there, right? Like certain spots, especially because both the NBA and WNBA are guard-heavy leagues. You got a lot of guards, and you got to only have, 4 or 5 spots. Obviously, then it just gets to the things of it, right? Is Enrique better than Sabrina, right? Obviously Enrique is more of a shooting guard than a point guard. You've got stuff like that. I mean, you just look at the people who are on that team that play the position. Kalia Copper, is she North Philly stand up? Is that like, stuff like that. You got a lot on that team. So I think that she had to clean it up. But as with most sports, there's politics, but specifically in basketball, with it only being 12 spots, and some people aren't guaranteed to play, I think a lot of those spots go to people who they think, won't cause an uproar if they don't get to play, right? Because, especially in the Olympic stuff, is way more matchup dependent than it is on NBA and WNBA, so you might not get to play all the time. I'm not saying Enrique would cause a stink, neither about some of the men's players that are missing, but I think that that's the consideration, right? Like in the Olympics, it's the ultimate sacrificing league, sacrificing 2 weeks. Like everybody sacrifices. If you got the hot hand, you got the hot hand. It's pure basketball, right? So at some point, some of this stuff is about, I think Enrique deserves to be on the team. I think she will be on the team in 2028 in LA. I would be surprised if she's not on that team. And, I think that's what she meant, that there's politics in basketball, and that, sort of saying kind of like what Jay-Z said more loud than what she's saying, that some people, Jay-Z basically said this at the Grammys, right? Some people don't deserve Grammys. This is basically what Enrique said without saying it, that, some people don't deserve them spots, but she had to clean it up. She obviously didn't say that. She just kind of coded it with politics, but some of y'all got to learn how to read between the lines of what she's saying, right, Trey?
Well, that, but also, I mean, she did kind of say it though. In this is an article from the New York Post. She said that there were flags. This is in reference to her pulling out of the running to be on the team. There were flags and things that I just felt, but at the end of the day, they choose who they want to who they want to choose, and that has nothing to do with me. Mm-hmm. And then later on, she says, when it comes to the Olympic trials, it really doesn't have much to do with your game. It's really about who they feel like fits with the team. So I actually took my name out of the hat months ago. That's not saying I didn't think maybe last year I would be on the team and I was good enough to make the team, but that when the list came out, I knew I would not be that one. So when she says politics again, like Colin was saying, I think we're in agreement, is that quote that Jay-Z made, like you said. Some people deserve, some people don't. I think in this case, most of the people on the team did deserve. It's just a question of I think a lot of people think of it as, oh, the best player should automatically be on Team USA. And what Enrique is saying is that's not the case. Just because you're supposedly the better player does not mean that you're automatically, or based on trials, that you're going to make it on to Team USA.
Right. And this is where I show that I am, or at least I was, chronically online this week. Some people are asking this, so we're going to get into it. Is the country sending the wrong team to Paris? I've said this before. I think Enrique Agumbawale should be on the team. But after watching what I watched last night or yesterday afternoon with them getting into the flow of things, I think the right team went to Paris. I think it's a really good mix of young and old talent. For lack of a better term, like I said, I think Enrique should have been on that team. I know when most people say he's in the wrong team, they talk about Caitlin Clark, but I think that Caitlin Clark deserved, and Angel Reese deserved their vacation. They don't need to be on this team. Plus, Angel Reese is there anyway. She was at the game, the men's game a couple of days ago. I don't know if she'll be in Paris, but we'll see. With that NIL money, she can go as far as she wants. So, I'm of the mindset that they sent the right team. We will see, but this happened 2 years ago that, Team USA on the women's side lost to Team WNBA and they wound up sweeping the Olympics. Again, this is the best team that we got is the women's basketball team. Just purely by the numbers, right? Like Trey's more of a numbers guy than I am, but they're going for their 8th straight gold medal. Like, you can't really argue with that. Like, the men are going for their 5th straight. The women are going for their 8th straight. I believe the only team that's up there with them as far as how many gold medals they've achieved these last couple Olympics is the volleyball team, and obviously a bunch of individual sports participants. And obviously Simone Biles is going for her 4th. I believe that Katie Ledecky is going for the most gold medals. She's going for 10, which would make her the all-time winningest, U.S. Olympic athlete. So she's at the top, but that's more of an individual than that's why I separated that out. But I think the team is sending the right team, obviously with the noted exception, like I said, of Enrique Agumbawale not being there. But, she also, I don't know, I believe she's Nigerian as well, so she could have done what Nneka Ogwumike and Chineye Ogwumike did and played for Nigeria. But I think she also needed this vacation as well, so it might have been a blessing in disguise. Once, obviously, athletes, they're prideful. Once the pride and everything settles down, I think that they'll see that, hey, this was better for me because I needed to be available for the stretch run anyway. So, but I think they sent the right team. What about you, Trey?
I agree. They sent the right team. I mean, if you look at the games, they have a win differential of I don't know, on average 30 points, and that's not even. I mean, if you include the All-Star game, which technically doesn't even really count. Nobody's really paying attention to that game from an international standpoint. But I mean, and to your point of Enrique potentially playing for Nigeria, I don't even think that would have mattered because they beat them 100-46. So even if Enrique put up 40, they still would have lost by 20. But no, I definitely think they sent the right team. I don't see any reason why Team USA the women's team won't win their, what would this be, 10th gold or 9th gold in a row. So it's, you just look at the box scores, man. They tell a story, and the story is that they're on track to win. I mean, they beat Germany by 40 points or 30-something points last night. They already beat Belgium by 2 points, so that was a closer game. Their first game in Paris is going to be Japan. I think that's a win. Belgium is going to be a tough game. I think they'll come on top, and then they've shown that they can already beat Germany. So to me, that's there it is.
For some reason, sorry, y'all, I was on mute for a minute. We said we would keep this keep track of this story. Jontay Porter, the brother of Michael Porter Jr., requests that the judge over his case lets him go to Greece to continue his basketball career. So what is oh, sorry. I have a little mishap there. I said Potter instead of Porter, but I will fix that real quick. But Trey, why I fixed this graphic? What do you think about this?
It's an interesting situation because just because you're in Greece does not mean that you can go bet in Greece. I don't know what Greece's sports betting laws are, but it's a situation where, I mean, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. You would think a player would be smart enough. Like, it's one thing if I said, hey, I have 6 siblings, right? I said, hey, I go talk to my brother and say, hey, I'm in the NFL or I'm in the NBA, and I say, hey, bro, can you make some bets for me on this game? I'm not going to physically do the bets. You do them. I'm going to just tell you what to bet. Jontay Porter went so far as to fake being injured and fake being sick on the court so that people could bet the under on his points split. So at the same time, he's a young guy. Gambling can be an addiction, and it seems like maybe he had and maybe still has some sort of addiction to gambling. So I would say if sports betting is not allowed in Greece or whatever the case may be, or maybe I don't know if sports betting is even allowed on the international stage. I'm not sure, but if there's more,
I'm looking it up. Don't worry.
If there's more restrictions or whatever the case may be, and he's got the support around him to do that, then yeah. But if he's going international, as far as I know, his family all lives in the U.S. His brother's in the league, right, in the NBA. Where's that support system to help him when he wants to go bet on some games?
Yeah, sports betting's been legal there, at least online, since 2011. So
yeah. So what I don't know what the thought process is in him saying, can he go play in Greece? I don't know, because I mean, this is a situation where he's banned officially from the NBA, but I'm sure the other league, like the Euro League, is aware of the situation. Mm-hmm. So, and to my knowledge, they haven't done any official ban. But like, who's to say that they would even want him in the league, knowing that betting is allowed internationally and that he could essentially go back and do the same thing?
Yeah, I think so. I think for him, I hate comparing it to this but it is the same sickness, addiction. I think he needs to be treated sort of like, people get treated in AA, right? You get a sponsor. I think if I'm the obviously, because obviously he played for the Toronto Raptors, so we're dealing with two different two different countries and then two different continents here, right? You're dealing with North America, Canada, and Europe. So like, I think that if the judge deems that he's because obviously you shouldn't up the crimes. Is kind of like, again, I don't know Canadian law. Again, this is probably why we need to get a sports lawyer on here when we talk about these cases. But like, I don't know. I don't know like Canadian law, but I just think that obviously the biggest thing was he cheated people out of money, obviously. But in comparison to like murders and all this other stuff, he's a criminal, but he's not like a person that I think needs to be locked up. But again, I don't know what the Canadian judge will do. I know it's a 2 to 4 year misdemeanor. And I think that, obviously I don't think I'm not a Canadian citizen, so I think I can get away with saying this. Like, I don't think Canadian tax dollars, and again, I don't know how they do it, but I'm assuming Canadian tax dollars goes to fund the prison system in Canada. I don't think Canadian tax dollars needs to be used to reform Jontay Porter. And this is where my other degree comes in. As Trey knows, I love talking about this type of stuff. It's where my degree in criminology comes in. I don't think he needs to go there, because I think we've seen in studies that most people, when you go to jail, if you're a low level offender like a gambler, or just for lack of a better low level crimes, masturbator, stuff like that, you just go in there, you get in with the hardened criminals, you really learn how to be a better criminal. And you really don't want a former basketball player, or anybody for that particular matter, as a low level offender. And again, I don't know how the Canadian system separates out high level offenders and low level offenders. So this might be null and void, and I might be speaking out of some ignorance here. But so excuse me if I'm wrong. I will let y'all know if I'm wrong next week. I don't think I am, but I will let you know. I am of the mindset that, he should be, long story short here, they should let him go to Greece, not let him get a chance to become a better criminal. But he just needs to have a sponsor. They need to come up with a plan, his support system, his team, to make sure that he's not betting on the money. Like, I don't know if they need to walk with him to the bank, like see the direct deposit go in from the team. I don't really know what they need to do, but they need to do that to make sure his money isn't going to betting sites. I think as long as that's not happening, he deserves to continue his career, just not in the NBA, but continue his basketball career. And it seems like the EuroLeague, at least from what we're learning from all of these exhibition games and soon from the Olympics, that EuroLeague basketball seems like it's a really good league. So he can learn to be better, and maybe eventually, obviously he's banned for life, but maybe with a new commissioner, and maybe like 5, 10, 15 years from now, maybe like people, he's not going to be a Hall of Famer, but maybe people will look at it differently 5 to 10, 15 years from now. And if this show is still going at that point, maybe we'll roll this tape back, and I'll either be proven right or wrong. But I just think that he should be allowed to go to Greece. But I'm in agreement with Trey that they just have to make sure that he's not betting and not throwing games and giving the conspiracy theorists more ammo, So
yeah, and if the judge does decide to allow him to play in Greece, I think actually he does better overseas, because he was he was like a 15th man type of guy on the Toronto Raptors. Periodically, he got more minutes than that, but a lot of guys who struggle in the NBA go overseas or elsewhere into another league and end up doing pretty well. Like somebody like a Jimmer Fredette, that type of player, was really great in college. Just game didn't mesh with the NBA. Went overseas and succeeded.
God in China, bro.
Right.
He's a god in China. So moving right along, Trey brought this up. Team USA men's basketball. They beat Germany. It wasn't a barn burner like the South Sudan game. But it was a game where they struggled with turnovers. And my reaction to this: a win's a win. I would rather them win close games now. Again, that South Sudan game that's not the topic, but that South Sudan and Germany game might be a little bit more close for comfort. But I just think that they do better when they have Joel Embiid in the lineup. And some of y'all might think I'm being biased here, but we've seen Anthony Davis, for those of you that were Anthony Davis fans in the first 2 games, we've now seen him get cooked these last 2 games. Where he gives you a rebounding, he gives up on the other side. And obviously Joel Embiid, it seems like it's starting to settle in. We see that growing chemistry with LeBron James and Steph Curry. And I think that is your best 3 players. And when KD's healthy, that's your best 4 right there. And just put Anthony Edwards or Devin Booker in at 2, and that's your starting 5 right there. So I just think that we're seeing them come together. Again, taking the journalist hat off for a minute, I would rather see, as Trey knows, as stressed out Philly and recovering Philly sports fans never fully recover when you're born into this, as we both know. But you rather games be blowouts, but in this case, when you're trying to go for your 5th straight gold medal, you might as well get tested now than when it counts. When you have to see Serbia, South Sudan, Puerto Rico, and all of them in your group play starting on, I believe it's Sunday is when their first game is. So starting on Sunday, like you rather go through it now, right, than when the games actually count. So that's where I'm at with it. I think that they need to figure out the bench unit. I think that Joel Embiid should play more. I think that, if you really want to test it, why not, since you're already playing Bam and Anthony Davis together anyway, why not play Joel Embiid and Anthony Davis together? Let AD be his more natural power forward. For those of you that don't know, you're not into the weeds. Anthony Davis plays better as a power forward than he does as a center. He just can't be a center with the Lakers. So, like, I mean, he just can't be a power forward with the Lakers. So that's where I'm at with it. I think that, you know, they have some work to do, but I like the fact that they were in close games. They had to figure out the rotation, and you kind of see the hierarchy. It's LeBron, Steph, and Joel. Everybody else gets behind those three. I like that. So I like that they can sort of figure out the hierarchy already. Trey?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I haven't been able to. I just haven't had the time to kind of sit down and watch the games. But I've been kind of like, you know, from the outside looking in, watching highlights and clips from the games. But no, I mean, I am agreeing with you. I think those top three guys, Embiid, Steph, and LeBron, when those guys are on the floor, the team is much better. I agree with you about Anthony Davis more than you actually might think. I was while we were on vacation, we were talking about it was like my brother and some of his friends. We were just talking about what the starting lineup should be, and I was like, Anthony Davis shouldn't be in the starting lineup. Because it just doesn't make sense really for him to be in the starting lineup. He's not the most skilled player. It's not that he isn't skilled. You are correct in saying that Anthony Davis definitely enjoys playing power forward more than center. He on the Lakers, that's just the position he has to play. Especially in the league where we're leaning more towards small ball. He's like 6'10", 6'11-ish. Yeah, I think though, like you mentioned, I think this team, especially because your best three players are don't quote me if I'm wrong here, but I believe they are the three oldest players on the team other than KD. Well, you know, so you got KD, LeBron, Joel Embiid, Steph.
Well, Steph. It's Steph. Well, it's LeBron, Steph, and KD. Steph and KD are pretty close in age, so.
And then you got Drew. So Drew is 34.
Yeah, so I was about to say Embiid's a young 30, so
right.
It's only by default because he's 30.
Yeah. But your veterans, right? Your is Steph, LeBron, Joel Embiid, KD. I think it makes the most sense. And then you throw, if you want to, you can throw Anthony Davis somewhere in there. I just don't think that makes sense. I think you throw Devin Booker in there, and that's your starting lineup. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I will say in Olympic years, obviously this is Steph and Joel's first Olympics, but as far as who has the experience playing under these rules, it's obviously it's KD, it's LeBron, it's Drew because of the last time, Devin Booker, AD obviously. Like, you know, I'm not disrespecting him. If he wins another gold medal, he'll be the first player to like win a national championship, a ring, and like multiple gold medals and a FIBA World Championship. So, like, you know, he's one of the only NBA players to do that. And, you know, like, so lost and all that is that. But, like, you know, I just think it makes more sense for him to be a backup to Joel and then play with Bam, because Bam and him basically do the same thing. And he can still technically be a power forward, even though he's more of like a center when him and Bam. I just think that works. That's more your defensive lineup. But, yeah, I just think they need to figure out the rotations. I think they need to play Halliburton more, too. I haven't really liked that, like, he's been sacrificed because obviously there's just been the nature of the thing that Drew needs to be in there, and so does Derek White. So Halliburton has to just sit there when I think they're really missing another playmaker on the bench unit. But, you know, that's just me. That's just what I think. But, yeah, so we'll move right along then. So how are we feeling about Team USA men's basketball's chances at winning the fifth straight gold medal? I feel pretty good about it. You know, from the outside looking in, I think that they won't. Usually with these games, they have trouble with Spain. Obviously, Spain's a little bit older. They still need to look out for them. But I think their biggest threat is the hometown team, Paris. I mean, Rudy Gobert, dealing with Wemby, and I think that's their biggest threat there. France. I think that's the biggest thing, and obviously you got a little bit of a grudge match there because I know a lot of the French people, as was shown, they were talking trash to Embiid about giving back his passport when they saw him the day when the team arrived. I don't know if you saw that video or not, Trey, but you heard it in French, and I guess someone translated it to what they were saying because a lot of them are very upset, as you and I both know, that Joel Embiid is not giving them a three front court of him, Rudy, and Joel and him, Rudy, and Wemby. I guess Wemby would have been the small forward. I guess, of giving them the for lack of a better term, the triple towers of those three together. I definitely think that would have been a cheat code because then Joel Embiid would have really been unmatched and been able to do whatever he wanted. France. He definitely would have been the best player on that team. And obviously, selfishly, either way, I would have been covering him. But I'm kind of glad that he decided to play for Team USA and not France, just because I think that would have been an ultimate cheat code. But I just think it's France as a threat. Obviously, Greece and Serbia. Joel Embiid's favorite two rivals, Giannis on the Greek team, and Serbia with Nikola Jokic. But I just think that the one thing that the USA has plenty of is big men with Bam, Joel, and AD. So I think that no team will be able to see them. And like we've seen these last two games, when LeBron and Steph want to show up, they show up, and no team can really match that. So I think it's looking pretty good for them to get their fifth straight gold medal. But I think that we'll get to this later. But I think that they're gonna be more reliant on Joel Embiid scoring than they really realize. It hasn't really shown up. I mean, he's been scoring 15 to 20 points these last two games. And I think it's gonna do this because Steph Curry and LeBron haven't always been on. So I think that they're gonna be feeding him, feeding Anthony Edwards. I feel like that's gonna be the duo right there that's gonna really take them over the top.
I completely agree with you. I think they're on the right track to win fifth straight. And I think the key for them against some of the teams that we've struggled for in the past, like I mean, not even necessarily struggle, but the teams that are the problem teams, just because of the history that they have, is France, Spain, Greece, Serbia, and ironically, France is one of those teams that you look at the team, you look at the roster, you say, okay, why would they be a problem? I mean, obviously they have Wemby, but like after Wemby, they got like Nanda De Colo, Nicholas Batum, Rudy Gobert, right? And if you're an NBA fan, you look at that team and you say, and so I'm speaking to the average NBA fan right now, you probably look at that team and you say, why is France a problem? It's because these guys play, when they're not playing in the NBA, they play together. Right, Wemby played before he got in the NBA. He was playing for Team France, so these guys have chemistry outside of what they, outside of the NBA. Whereas Team USA, the chemistry that they've gotten is, in practice and the 4 or 5 games that they played in group play. Right, none of these guys, I don't think, on Team USA currently have actually played with each other, except for LeBron. I guess there's LeBron and AD, obviously. And then I think for 1 year, Drew and Derek might have played together, Derek White.
But other than that, the natural teammates, obviously, Drew Holiday, Derek White, and Jason Tatum.
But the crossover of them being on the court always at the same time is not always there. Whereas these other guys who are international players and they play for the country that they're from, they have a lot of chemistry going back 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years in some cases, which is why some of these international teams that have these players pose such a threat to Team USA, despite the fact that you might say, well, regardless, we still have, let's say 3 or 4 of the best players in the world on Team USA, and they might have one of or none of the top player, the let's say top 10 or 15 best players in the world. But I think what it's going to come down to me is the coaching. You got Steve Kerr, Mark Few, Ty Lue, and who am I forgetting? Lord have mercy.
Okay, Eric Spoelstra.
Eric Spoelstra, yes, Spo. Two of which have coached LeBron, and Steve Kerr obviously has coached Steph. And I think the combination, I don't know too much about Mark Few, but the combination of that coaching, I think, is going to bode well for them, in particular when they play some of these more challenging teams to play, because they are going to put the players in the best position to succeed, right? They know, I think Steve Kerr, Spo, and more so Steve Kerr and Spo know how to put them into, okay, we're playing so-and-so team, so Steph needs to get more minutes, or we're playing this team, so we need to play a more team ball oriented game where we're just moving the ball a lot. We're playing a more San Antonio Spurs type of game, or we're playing this team, so go out there and do what you want. We can play a little bit more one-on-one type. And I think they're good enough coaches and have the respect of all of the players on this team enough for them to say, hey, look, we got to do this. This is how we're going to win, and for them to listen. So there's that. And I think there's also some, I think from in particular LeBron and Steph, and probably KD as well, but I think more so with LeBron and Steph, because I think they're closer to retirement than the rest of the guys. There's definitely some pride in this, because this very well might be their last time playing in the Olympics. It could be KD's last as well, but I think KD is, just play style wise, he could play longer. I guess Steph could play longer too, but just with the state of the Warriors, and where LeBron is, I think, there's a chance that they don't ever play in the Olympics together, and I think their competitive nature is going to, I think it's going to take them to the goal in combination with good coaching.
All right, I agree. All right, so player or players who will benefit the most from playing on Team USA. So I wrote a whole article about this, lastwordonsports.com, about how Joel Embiid, I think, will benefit the most from playing at Team USA. I think he's going to get an Anthony Edwards-like bump from playing with Team USA, just because, as he said, just a couple of days ago, he gets to experience what it's like. And I know Celtics fans will think that Jason Tatum takes unnecessary shots, but this is just the truth, right? Joel Embiid has to do everything. Like he just said it, like, this is the first team where, like, he can not do anything and just lay back and do the little things, right? Whereas if he was playing for the Sixers and he went 5 for 20, the Sixers probably lose by 20. so I am of the mindset that Joel Embiid will benefit from this, because he's learning how to do. Obviously, he's always been able to roll. I have always said that people who like talk about his pick and roll game are casuals, just because like he's always rolling. As Trey and I have been in the games together, we've seen it live. He just never gets the ball when he rolls a lot of times, or he picks and pops. And because they're too late to get him the ball, it turns into a double team in the paint, and he has to get the ball out real fast. But I think he's learning how to do the pick and roll. He's definitely learning how to like just get open and people will find him. Playmaking, obviously his playmaking has been a lot better as of last season, but even this season, like you're really seeing that, you can just see that the weight is off his shoulder. And I think it's really going to help him, because obviously he's got to learn how to play with Paul George and Tyrese Maxey again anyway. Obviously there's a built-in chemistry there with Maxey and him, but specifically how to sacrifice with Paul George to maybe like not score 36 points a night instead and just score like 28, 27, which I know Trey is very much a fan of him lowering his scoring average and saving that for the playoffs. But I'm of the mindset that it can only benefit him. I think he will be a much better player. I think that, he's learning to value the ball. Not to say that he didn't before, but he's not making as many crazy passes as he did this season. A lot of those were turned into real great plays for the Sixers. So I love, seeing him being able to be free, being able to do him only having to score 15, 18 points instead of having to score 30. I think it's really just going to help him. I think another player that's going to benefit from this again is Anthony Edwards, just because instead of playing with Jalen Brunson, he's actually getting to play with his peers, playing with the Joel Embiid outside of an All-Star game, LeBron, Steph Curry, learning how to get open, learning how to be a better shooter from Steph and them. So I think Anthony Edwards and Joel Embiid, two future teammates, I think, are really going to benefit from this. And I think you're going to see it in October. And for those Sixers fans and people like Rasheed Wallace who are detractors about him playing, if nothing else, for all of you that say he's fat and he doesn't do nothing, he'll be in game shape in October. So, there's that too. As Trey knows, I hate that. I hate saying somebody who's 7'2" with like an 8-foot wingspan and is a unicorn is fat, because none of us know what that's like. So I hate saying that. But because none of us have ever gotten to the echelon that he's in. But I think that at least if nothing else, he'll definitely be in game shape come October. What about you, Trey?
Yeah, I agree with you in particular on Anthony Edwards. You kind of took that one from me because he's one of my favorite players. I love his game. I think his biggest weakness is probably playing off the ball and knowing where to be on the court, where not to be on the court. There was a couple times in some of the games and some of their like early, you just kind of like watching some of the practice clips where they're running a set and he's just kind of standing there, and then he runs somewhere and he realizes, oh, I shouldn't have ran there, that type of situation. So I think for him, it's gonna help him because obviously international ball is just different. It's a different style of game. So I think I think in particular, it's going to help him learn how to play off ball more. And I think the other two players, hopefully, and I don't know if this is more of a hopeful thing, is Devin Booker and KD. Mm-hmm. Because one of the big things with the Suns this past season was that you got three players who are ball dominant players like Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant. And Devin Booker in particular and Bradley Beal in particular are not really plug and play type of players compared to somebody like a Paul George, who you can kind of just stick in anywhere and he can play anywhere. I'm hoping that Devin Booker in particular can learn to be more of that type of player where you can just kind of stick him on the court and he'll adjust his game because obviously KD is a veteran. You would like him to be the leader on that team. And so on the Suns, is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes down to it, who's going to want, you're expecting him to want the ball late, that type of situation. And I'm hoping Devin Booker that he learns how to play better off of KD and kind of pick and choose his spots and learn better how to fit in depending on who's on the court.
Mm-hmm. I agree there. I'm always do like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. So I hope that dynamic works out for the Suns. But yeah, moving right along to the women. How are we feeling about Team USA women's basketball's chances of winning their 8th straight gold medal? And I know we kind of answered this already. I feel pretty good about it. And if you looking for, Trey and I are superstitious, but if you superstitious folk are looking for an omen, like I said earlier, they lost to the WNBA All-Stars 2 years ago when they just did the Olympics in Tokyo, and they swept everything, and Trey just went through all the numbers and everything. Feeling pretty confident, about their chances of getting an eighth straight gold medal and really showing that they are the preeminent basketball team and the best overall sports team that the country brings to the Olympics.
I'm in agreement. I don't think there's any reason, unless some fluke happens, cross fingers. Hopefully this doesn't actually happen. But as long as there's no like major injury or like, one team they play against, similar to a South Sudan type of situation, I'm no disrespect to those players. But you have they play a team who maybe is clearly the lower ranked team and they just kind of go off against Team USA. Unless something crazy like that happens, I see no reason why Team USA women's basketball does not win their 8th straight gold medal.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, players are players who I think will benefit the most from playing on the women's team. I think, again, you got the teammates. I think I think it's going to benefit Sabrina Ionescu to finally play on the national team, and Kalia Copper. I think that that with the WNBA team is definitely more of a teammates thing going on there than with the men's roster. You've got most of the Las Vegas Aces there: Kelsey Plum, Chelsea Gray, Jackie Young, Asia Wilson. I think it's going to benefit the teammates. I think it's going to benefit the two stars the most. Obviously, Sabrina, I think, is going to give her a chance for people who don't get to see her locally or internationally to see her do her thing, cross them up, be the playmaker. Asia Wilson, I mean, we just saw it yesterday against Germany, right? Like, just dropping a casual 22 and 10 rebounds and like just showing how much of the superstar she is, right? I think it's definitely going to benefit the teammates, the Liberty and the Aces there. But outside of that, I think it's going to benefit other players as well. I think Nafisa Collier is going to benefit too. I think most of the women will benefit, but the players I'll say are the Aces, the teammates on the Aces, the Liberty teammates of Breanna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu, and Asia Wilson, I think is going to benefit the most because people will see that she is clearly the best player in the WNBA and probably the best women's basketball player on the planet right now. I know you Caitlin Clark stands, our heads are exploding just for me saying that, but I think she's got an argument. Go ahead, Trey.
I don't really know. I think you're right in saying that most of these players will benefit from playing on Team USA. I think maybe Kelsey Plum, perhaps. She's a smaller player. And I don't know if you watch her game, she has this kind of like, she has that, I don't know who would be a good example of like an NBA player or another player. She has a Rondo type of like the way she moves around the court. Like she'll kind of drive down the lane and then drive under the basket and do a little turnaround, and do a little floater. She has that type of game.
She's got that like Nat style of personality.
Yeah.
Personality, yeah.
So I'm interested to see how that will impact if there's anything she picks up from playing international ball. Same with some of the younger players on Team USA. Like, I'm interested to see like what, like let's say somebody like Asia, like if there's anything she picks up like skill wise or just a piece of her game that she picks up that she was like, oh, I didn't realize that was in my, my bag per se, or in the process of playing, you're like, oh, let me add this to my bag based on what happened in international play. So,
all right. So rolling right along, the guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Get in on this live chat. Get famous. Come talk to us. Let us know. You got anything you disagree with? I know you Caitlin Clark stands probably going to run that back on me one day. but heading into the start of the Olympics, what are the storylines to pay attention to? Trey, you want to start here?
Yeah, I can start. We talked about one of them, which was ironically a team that's not on the Olympics, which is Enrique. But as far as storylines of who's on the Olympics, obviously, Lord have mercy, I'm blanking. The gymnast Simone. Yeah. I think Simone is always, no matter what's going on, she's always going to be a storyline to pay attention to. And then I'm sure you're aware of the storylines that happen. It's her and then her husband and that kind of storyline that happens. I think this team, the women's team, winning their 8th straight is a big deal, and the men's potentially winning their 5th straight is a big storyline to pay attention to. I'm trying to think of other storylines in other sports, but yeah, I think if you look at in particular those two sports rather, gymnastics and then basketball, we have a good chance of taking away gold, I think, in having 3 gold medals just alone in those 3, women's basketball, men's basketball, Olympics. So I think that right there, that kind of like I don't want to, you know, but that I think that's a big storyline right there that maybe some people aren't even really considering, because we do have a very, very. If you look at the roster, I mean, there's some people who got so-called snubbed even on the gymnastics team, but we have a really good roster this year amongst all three of those teams.
Yeah, I agree. But one that I think I'm surprised you didn't mention Sha'Carri Richardson. Will she do it? Will she do it? Will she get 100? Will she be able to beat the Jamaicans in the 100 meters and get the ultimate redemption? Katie Ledecky in swimming. We can't forget, like I said, 10-time going for 10 straight. Women's volleyball team. Like, let's give some love to the other dominant team that we have. That's also in women's sports, the women's volleyball team trying to medal again. The last time they did it was the first time in history that the U.S. men's volleyball team won a gold and the U.S. women's volleyball team won gold. We're used to back-to-backs in men's and the basketball portion, but seeing it in volleyball is a great thing. I'll give you that. Sha'Carri, you took Simone. I'm going Noah Lyles. I know a lot of basketball fans don't really like Noah Lyles because he said, like, what are you the world champion of if you don't play the world? And a lot of NBA fans were like, there's a lot of international players in the NBA, so that's why they can say world champions. Forgetting all that, Noah Lyles, he's that dude. He's arrogant as all get out, but he wins, so you can't really be mad at it. So there's that. Obviously, the women and the men's team. I'm trying to see. Oh, Simone Manuel, back another redeemed team person back in the Olympics. Took her mental health break and came back even stronger, just like Simone Biles. Coco Gauff, we'll see if she can. She missed the last Olympics because of COVID, so we'll see what she does. Can she get a gold medal? She'll be also.
She's what do you call it? A flag bearer this year.
Yeah, her and LeBron. Her and LeBron are flag bearers. That's good. First time a women's tennis player and the first time a men's basketball player. This is crazy. The first time a men's basketball player gets to be a flag bearer. All them Jordan years, I guess they didn't want to make him the flag bearer. So it's going to be great to see. Those are storylines there. I can start unless you got another one.
Yeah, I had forgotten, but Sydney McLaughlin, who had broken her own record in the I think it was the 400 meter.
Yeah,
that's a storyline to see how she performs.
She's gonna dominate it.
So it's like, I mean, her record was already, like, obviously it was a record-setting performance in prior years, but she hasn't been in the Olympics for the last. I think it's been the last 8 years technically.
Yeah, since 2022. So yeah.
Okay, so right, so that's. I mean, I think that's a more even. Just when you look at any of the track and field, and in terms of Olympics, those are always really interesting. Like to see who's going to set a new record, who's going to set a new record, who's going to underperform. Those are the type of things that I think are interesting to pay attention to, in particular in those and track and field. So yeah, Sydney McLaughlin is a good one to pay attention to as well.
Yeah, I'm going to give y'all some if you degenerate sports better or something, because I know it's the Olympics and all of y'all going to be betting on this stuff. Most of y'all some of y'all probably listen to this podcast for your betting knowledge now. So like, I do know some people who literally listen to this podcast to hear what Morgan and I think they can bet on it. So like, I'm of the mindset that, there's 4 athletes who you can just, if they're in an event, you can just forget about it. Noah Lyles, Sydney McLaughlin-Leroux, Katie Ledecky, and Simone Biles. Like, you can set it and forget about it. Like, those are the 4 athletes that you can just set it and forget about it. Like, there's no, we haven't seen a person yet be Noah Lyles in the 100 and 200. I don't know if he'll do the 200, but specifically in the 100 since Usain Bolt retired, it's been Noah Lyles event. Like, it's just that easy. Like, the other thing about this that I forgot is the USA relay team, because the men's track team didn't do well. And obviously, the women's track, I'm looking to see the women's relay team too. Now that Allison Felix has retired, who's going to be the anchor there? I'm really interested in the relay teams, because relays I think are fun to see. But moving right along, at the end of the Olympics, who will be the talk of the event? So the athletes, I think, will be the talk of the event. I think Sha'Carri, I think she's going to be on the Ultimate Redeem side. We didn't talk about Suni Lee, but I think Suni Lee, Simone Biles, and Jade Carey, 3 Olympians. Obviously, 2 of them more recent than 3 of them more recent than the others. Like, they're basically senior citizens. Like, you know, I know that Simone is like 26, but as Trey knows, because I know he has gymnasts in his family too, like, once you hit your 20s, you're kind of old in gymnastics years. You're basically a senior citizen. But the fact that those 3 came back and are really just there for another gold medal, I think those 3 are going to be the talk of the Olympics as well. I think Joel Embiid is going to put in a performance to remind y'all who the best player in the NBA is. You know, and Joel, Simone, Jade, and Suni. I think Noah. I think Sha'Carri. And I think Simone Manuel too. I think she's gonna put in a big thing. And I'm always looking forward to like the new sports. Obviously, new sports. Put that in parentheses, like breakdancing. I'm looking forward to knowing who these United States breakdancers and international breakdancers are. Like, I don't know about Trey, but I'm looking. I know a lot of people that are like, you know, You Got Served and dance movie fans that are probably gonna be paying attention to breakdancing. So I can't wait to see like who's not unknown, who's like an accountant or something, and like is on the breakdancing team is about to be way more famous because they were on the breakdancing side in Paris. I'm really looking forward to those unknown athletes that are like regular people. Obviously, they're all regular people, but y'all know what I mean. Like that get more famous because they're in like a random event in Paris. Don't you? But you're next.
Yeah, I mean that's gonna be interesting. There's a guy who's he's like almost 70 now, who got popular a couple years back for being a break dancer. He was like I was when you said that I was like, well, I wonder. I don't think he's on the team, but even at this age, he still can break dance.
Okay. Hey, break-ins for everybody if you got the flexibility, I guess.
I guess so.
What about you? Who's going to be the talk of the event for you?
I think the majority of the players that you mentioned, even some of the players that we mentioned, from the storylines, I think potentially Anthony Edwards actually. If you've watched and whether you've watched the games or not, you've paid attention to the highlights. He's had some great plays. Despite the fact that maybe he's not always putting up the most points or whatever the case may be. And I think if that trend continues into regular play during the Olympics, I think he's going to end up being crucial if they're going to win this fifth straight. I think he can be that type of Kobe or Carmelo type of player when it comes to Olympic play, when maybe he wasn't necessarily the best player on the team type of situation, but was very, very crucial to them winning. I'm not saying Anthony Edwards is as good as Carmelo Anthony or Kobe, obviously, but I'm talking about if you paid attention during those 2 different runs during the Olympics, those guys were not necessarily the guys on the team per se. I think Kobe more so kind of just took over, whereas Carmelo was kind of like Carmelo just went on a crazy, just this kind of crazy run. But they ended up both being glue guys on the team, and I'm hoping for Anthony Edwards that maybe can kind of be his role in a different way, because he's not necessarily the leader of the team, but that he can kind of step up and make some plays. And so I think because of that, I think, at least in the U.S., I think he's going to be the talk of the event.
Okay, cool. All right, so in Sixers news, the Sixers signed Reggie Jackson. Trey, your reaction to this?
Reggie Jackson is one of those players who's been in the league for a very, very long time. He's been on a number of different teams. I think it's a good signing. He's a veteran. We needed a point guard. He's not really a facilitator per se, but he is a point guard. I think earlier in his career, he was definitely a guy that looked to score. I think now in the latter half of his career, he's not the player quite that he used to be. But I think getting a veteran guard like that is always good. I don't think you ever really can go wrong with that, with bringing on a veteran guard onto your team that can give you, on a good night, he can actually give you 30, if he's on, and but can, be that type of guy that can just, be on the court, play some solid defense, be a veteran guy, help facilitate the offense, and I'm sure can actually help Tyrese Maxey as well. Kylan wrote an article recently about some of the things that Tyrese Maxey can do to elevate his game, and one of those things is just kind of being a better, we know he can score, we know he can get to the basket, but being a facilitator on the floor and kind of running the offense, I think. So yeah, I like it. I don't see any potential like issues really there. I think the only minor potential issue is that he's not the most consistent shooter. But I think I don't think he's going to be taking that many threes, and I think the threes that he's going to be taking, giving the floor spacing that we're going to have, especially with Paul George now, are going to be mostly wide open threes. So I think you see a scenario where maybe the number of threes he takes goes down, but percentage wise it goes up because he's taking a little bit more open threes or maybe less uncontested threes.
Okay. Hey, I'm of the mindset, kind of like Trey, we're in agreement here. Shocking, I know. That this is a good pickup. I know a lot of people, me included, I just wrote a whole article about this, are hoping that the Sixers use one of these open roster spots on a power forward, but it seems like, I think like I said a couple of weeks ago, like I told the Sixers fans to pay attention. I'm putting the journalist hat on here. That Adem Bona is going to be. I think that they feel like Adem Bona has shown enough in the summer league to be the backup power forward / center, along with Andre. Obviously, Andre Drummond's more the natural backup. But I think, like I said, I told Trey this when they drafted him, like Adem Bona basically has made sure that Paul Reed is irrelevant because he's more of a power forward anyway, and he does more what the Sixers need for their power forward to do, which is rebound and be in the right place to have putback dunks and can play enough defense. I say he was going to be the Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Joel Embiid of the bench, and that's what they need, right? You've seen it in summer league. Obviously, they've got Aluma too. I think Aluma will end up on an Exhibit 10 or a two-way contract. But I just think that at this point, I think that they feel like Adem Bona has shown enough to be the backup option. And if it doesn't work with Adem Bona, then they'll look at, there's enough power forwards. Like, if you look at the power forward, small forward guard market right now, you've got Gordon Hayward, you've got a bunch of Duke players still on there. You got is good enough. You got Jay Crowder's. I know it's one of Trey's favorite glue guys. Jay Crowder's out there. Like, you've got a lot of like good enough power forwards and small forward option there. But I think that just says that Adem Bona, they're really happy with him being there. And I think Reggie Jackson, to get to the Reggie Jackson signing, I think it's very good for not, he went the Tyrese Maxey route. I'll just go. It's good for Jared McCain because I think Reggie Jackson is the type of player that they expect Jared McCain to be. Like, I'm not saying that there's a good 1-1 comparison there, but I think he does what they expect Jared McCain to do: shoot, play D, be a ball handler, pass the ball. Jared McCain started to show flashes. I think that as if you're a Sixers fan, how you should look at it is essentially they think that because they have Adem Bona and Jared McCain, that they can afford to, because I don't think either one of those players are going to Delaware. And you kind of see that with the fact that they're on regular contracts and not two-ways. Like, I think that they expect both of them to contribute. That's why they can be like, all right, we'll bring Reggie Jackson in. I also think it's Kyle Lowry insurance. Like, you don't need to have Kyle Lowry play 25, 20 minutes. Maybe he can play like 15 to 17. Let Reggie Jackson take most of it. And then in the playoffs, obviously, they'll use Kyle Lowry a lot more. So I think it really helps that. I think Reggie Jackson's a great signing. Obviously, him and Paul George are really, really close. So it's really a Paul George insurance signing as well. Obviously, you see this. We talked about politics in basketball. This is one of those follow the friendships thing. Like Reggie Jackson's really close with Paul George, and lo and behold, Reggie Jackson's here. So I am of the mindset that this is a great signing. Obviously, they can do a lot. This might be, I said this in my article, the deepest bench that I think the Sixers have had in the Joel Embiid era. I just think it says a lot that, like, once Daryl Morey got some money, he put his stamp, and it's basically, I feel like the Sixers have been missing a roster that maximizes Joel Embiid. I think this roster maximizes Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey. I just think, like, if Tyrese Maxey goes down, you have, I'm not saying he will. I mean, he did go down a little bit last season, but you have Reggie Jackson. You don't have to rely on just Kyle Lowry. Like, you have Reggie Jackson, you have Jared McCain. I mean, you're Jared McCain. You get to learn from Tyrese Maxey, Kyle Lowry, and Reggie Jackson. Like, if you really think about it, Jared McCain's about to be the nastiest, most annoying guard ever because he gets to learn from Maxey, Lowry, and Jackson. I mean, come on. Like, I think this is a great signing, and it really shows the bench depth thing that we've been talking about.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that it's a great signing because, like I said, but I think where we are, and I think this, where we're in disagreement about is needing another power forward. I would love for them to go pick up one of the Morris brothers, bring Marcus back.
I feel like that's probably going to happen.
He's a Philly guy, obviously. I don't think they really wanted to trade him to Clippers. It was the right time to make that move, and so they did it. But I think he would love to come back and play for this team again. So in my mind, I don't think they're not. I don't think they're in a situation where they're like, we're not going to sign a power forward. If anything, I think that just means that they're going to bring back a veteran guy on a minimum contract or a very, like a 1 or 2 deal.
I think we're in agreement. Like I said, I think they need the power forward. I wrote a whole article about it. I think they need a Rocco, a Morris, somebody to do it. But I'm just saying that I think that they feel that a Dembona, I have no sourcing on this, but I feel like that open roster spot is because they want to see how a Dembona does. And then if he doesn't do well, if he struggles like all rookies do, then they can be like, all right. Because I don't think like of the people who I think they want that is still available, I don't think either one. I think Markieff Morris is more likely to get signed than Marcus Morris. I think that Gordon Hayward would be perfect here in Philly. But like, I think that they don't think that anybody's going anywhere. So, and ultimately, there might be a trade. Lauri Markkanen is always in play with the picks that the Sixers have. Let me calm y'all down because I know some of y'all think I've got. I mean, I do have some sourcing here, but not on this. That I think that Lauri Markkanen is in play. Now, do I think he will actually end up here? I don't think so. I wouldn't bet money on it, but like, I think that's always in play with the picks the Sixers have. But yeah, like I said, I think it's a deep bench, and I think I'm in agreement with you that they need a power forward, but I think they want to give a Dembona a chance before they, waste as people often, and Trey knows because he's related to one of them, as people often say, they waste roster spots. I think that this is their way of avoiding that accusation. Don't you? So
no, you're not wrong.
So moving right along to our football side of this. So Adam Schefter is reporting that CeeDee Lamb is not expected to show up at training camp because the Cowboys have been unable to give him an extension at market level. Oh, so I think who started last time? Was it me or you?
I don't remember.
Okay, so I'm gonna let you start here.
Yeah, so this is a situation where he's your best receiver by far. There's an argument that he's the best receiver in the league. I don't think he is. I think we have the best receiver in the league. Well, that's a lie. Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in the league. But CeeDee Lamb is a top 3 or 4 receiver in the league. And despite the fact that I'm an Eagles fan, I can say that, right? But it's a puzzling situation, right? The Cowboys have spent some money on some key players over the last couple of years, but they have 2. CeeDee Lamb is not the only one who there's some questions about what their contract will look like, what their future in Dallas is going to look like. It makes sense though. I mean, we've seen this before. In particular here in Philly, we've seen it with players not wanting to come into training camp because they ain't getting what they want pay wise, and it happens. We're in a time in sports where I think less so in the NFL, but you have holdouts. It typically is a quarterback thing. At least in what I've seen, it's typically the top players in the league, which often are
Saquon
quarterbacks.
held out last summer, so
well, yeah, you had Saquon last summer, which is why he ended up in Philly. I don't think this means that they'll end up losing CD. I think, at least the vibe I get from CD is that he does want to play in Dallas, career wise. But if something goes south, then there's a situation where, CD's like, because I think he still has one more year left. But if they don't get a deal done, you could have a situation where next year CD Lamb is not a Cowboy.
Yeah, well, Trey's hitting this with logic. I didn't come to hit this with logic. I put this question so I could be nonsensical because it's the Cowboys, so I could be annoying. But nah. So I think that Jerry Jones is being cheap. I think he's messing around and kind of like David Zaslav about to find out because he's playing with CD Lamb's money and he's playing with his meal tickets money, Dak Prescott, because I don't think many players. I don't think there's many quarterbacks. I know Jerry Jones and his family might think that they can get rid of Dak and replace him with any quarterback, but I don't know if they looked at their backup options. But they're not good. So if I'm CD Lamb, like I'm gonna hold out because as Dak Prescott's family has already said, he's getting tired of everything being on him, and I think that CD Lamb is seeing the writing on the wall that Dak Prescott will not be here. Will not be there, not here because I'm in Philly. Will not be in Dallas, and then I mean y'all just gotta follow the breadcrumbs because Tad Prescott has made this really really abundant that Jerry Jones is playing with Dak's money and he plays with Dak's money. Dak's not going to be there next year. If you're CD Lamb and he's playing with Dak's money, you got to be like, well, Dak's not there, and they draft a quarterback, which is more than likely going to happen. I'm in the last year of my deal. I better hold out and get some guaranteed money because my numbers are fitting to do this. like when they get a new quarterback in here. I mean, unless Kirk Cousins, maybe they can get the corpse of Kirk. I don't want to play with that. I shouldn't play with this. But maybe unless they can get Kirk Cousins in there, I think it's a wrap for CD Lamb. So I think CD Lamb needs to get his. I don't know what happened with Trey, but we dropped Trey. Trey dropped. But CD Lamb needs to get his money. There he is. What happened, bro?
I clicked the button by accident.
Okay. But I think that CD Lamb, is looking at the writing on the wall and saying, I better get my money because come next year, I might not be in good position to get my money if there's no Dak Prescott here. So I think that CD Lamb deserves his money. I think Jerry Jones and them will be wise to pay him his money because I don't think you can get a CD Lamb. A CD Lamb don't just fall off trees. I think they lucked into a CD Lamb type, and you won't really have that in next year's draft. So I think he better pay CD Lamb, and CD Lamb needs to hold out. And I'm not just saying that as an Eagles fan. I've got the journalist hat on. Everybody knows I say this all the time on this show. What I tell Trey, what does the NFL stand for? Not for long. Get your money. Get your money. We're seeing that Brandon Ayuk is holding out. CD Lamb needs to hold out because I think he's better than Brandon Ayuk. I think he deserves his money. AJ Brown, the Lions wide receiver. A lot of people have been resetting the market, and I said this. Trey knows. I said this a few months ago. They better pay CD Lamb because once AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Justin Jefferson reset that market, and then you're gonna have freaking Jamar Chase probably reset the market during the season. If Jerry was smart, he would have paid CD Lamb a few months ago, but he's not smart, and now CD Lamb wants a $300 million contract then with however much guaranteed. But that's where we are. And I think to move on to the next question, because Trey started it, are the Cowboys about to lose their star wide receiver quarterback in one off season? I think so. Now obviously with CD Lamb, they'll be able to franchise tag him and kind of force him to play. And all y'all know my stance on the franchise tag. I think it's useless. I think it needs to go bye-bye. But the NFL Players Union is the weakest union of the four sports leagues, and they have the franchise tag to keep, as Trey knows as an accountant, to keep these players from making their true market value. But I think that they're going to lose their quarterback because of where CeeDee Lamb is on the rookie scale. They have the franchise tag to force him to play. And we know that football players are not gonna throw games, for lack of a better term. So, I think CeeDee Lamb is in between a rock and a hard place, but I think they're definitely going to lose Dak next season. Trey?
Yeah, it's a tough situation, right, for Cowboys. And I'm speaking less about Jerry Jones than and more so for the rest of the organization. Because you're right about Jerry. This is a Jerry thing. This is not a anybody else situation. When it comes to why this is the case, why Dak Prescott and you're really, well, at least on offense, your two best players are like, nah, we won out, or and he's playing with their money. So are they going to lose their star receiver and quarterback in one season? Possibly. I would hope. I'm not, this is me speaking as being unbiased. That somebody on the Cowboys would say, "Hey man, hey Jerry, don't, what are you doing here, man? We gotta bring back, Dak and CeeDee and make them happy on this team. Otherwise, we're screwed." But the realists is in agreement with you, Kylan, which is that the Cowboys is Jerry Jones's team, and what Jerry Jones says goes. So if Jerry Jones does not want to pay CeeDee Lamb whatever he wants and doesn't want to pay Dak Prescott whatever he wants, both of those players, I think, do they both have 1 year left, or is Dak going to be a restricted or unrestricted free agent? You're breaking up, Kylan.
I can hear.
You're chopping up. I don't know if it's my internet or your internet, but yeah. So obviously, CeeDee Lamb has 1 more year left in his contract.
Right.
So technically, no, they won't lose him this offseason. They'll lose him next. But in essence, it's possible, yes, that they will, in theory, that they will lose them this season, meaning that whatever happens this season, whether they're franchise tagged or whatever the case may be, that I guess you can only franchise tag one player. But let me see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's why I said they're probably going to lose Dak because but I think that rookie stuff they can franchise tag him.
Right. So right. So they could franchise tag, meaning they could.
That's why I said they can force CeeDee Lamb to play out the rest of his contract and make him resign because of the rookie stuff with him. But Dak they can lose.
Correct. Right.
Yeah. So moving right along, and I'll let Trey talk while I pull this image up. But Joe Burrow's new look, and hold on, because I know some of y'all don't know what we're talking about. So
let me build up to this. So, Joe Burrow has previously been, I guess you would consider him brunette-ish. He's kind of had the typical, he's got the bangs almost. And it looks like Kylan's got the picture up. And now Joe Burrow looks like he belongs, like Eminem, or like he belongs in WWE. Ironically, that's what's popping up on the right hand side of the screen. But when I saw that, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, and I was like, what in the world is this man? But hey, look, Joe Burrow is coming off an injury. If changing his hair was kind of a way for him to say, "Hey, I'm back." I know the quote is "I got bored," but I think deep down though, for him, it was like
shout out the Sports Center Facebook page.
right. But I think it's one of those things where personally I can speak of it. I've never dyed my hair, but personally I have considered dyeing my hair a different color. You could tell my hair, it looks black, but it, like, if you really look at it, it's like a really, really dark brown. And I think Joe Burrow and he's probably a year or two younger than I. So, I mean, actually now I'm looking at it, we're the same age. He's a couple years or a couple months younger than me. I think it's whatever. He's a quarterback, so his head will be covered anyway. And I'm looking forward to whatever Joe Burrow is going to do this season, because it was kind of unfortunate that he got injured last season.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say this. I'm going to get this millennial joke in. With the real Joe Burrow, please stand up. Please stand up. That's what I was thinking when I was looking at this. I was like, yo, did Joe Burrow and Eminem like switch? Because Eminem out here looking like a vet, and Joe Burrow apparently may have been listening to Eminem's old albums and was just like, hey, let me do this. Look, man, like you see, he looks like Cody Rhodes. Shout out to the undisputed WWE champion there. Got to see him live at WrestleMania when he was here in Philadelphia. But yeah, he's definitely looking like. I mean, if I don't want to say, but like when I first saw this, my first thought was, and if you are going through this, please call the hotline, the mental health hotline, and all this other stuff. But I thought he was going through like a midlife crisis or a mental health or something when I first saw this, because like I said, what I was thinking was that Eminem album, and y'all know Real Slim Shady, Eminem was going through some things in that one. So like, that's what I was thinking. But like, I like Trey said, and like this quote says, he got bored. I don't know why he got bored with millions of dollars and decided to dye his hair, but he's just like us, I guess. So like, I'm of the mindset that Joe Burrow is a great quarterback, and I mean, he definitely got us talking, so it's helping podcasts like this and people who need something to talk about before the Olympics. So thank you, Joe Burrow, and we will see. Like Trey, I'm looking forward to see like what he's gonna do as he gets to go up against a really loaded AFC North between him, Russell Wilson's in it now. Lamar, what he'll do against the Ravens as they loaded up on defense, like Deshaun, it's the AFC North is low key loaded. So, we'll see what that is. And speaking of, because I know this guy, for some of y'all, is the answer to this question, to this next question for some of y'all. And I know Trey, I don't know, we didn't talk about this beforehand, so I don't know if Trey's happy about this or not. But most hated player in sports. I let Trey go, so I'll go. I mean, this is a countdown for me, but I gotta go with, especially if you were a non-Yankees fan and you didn't grow up in New York, or you're not one of these people, I gotta say Derek Jeter. I think he was one of the most hated players. It's not like anything against him personally. It's just that you ever have a player that's too good? That was Derek Jeter in baseball. Like the Yankees.
I mean, that was the Yankees in general.
Yeah. The Yankees were like an evil empire, and he was like the face of it. He was like Darth Jeter. So like, I or as I like to call him to annoy some of the Yankees fans in my life, Derek Cheater. And it would really piss off some Yankees fans, and I love doing it. But like Derek Jeter, I think he's in my top. He's in my top 4 or 5. No, can you really talk about this without talking about a Duke player? For some of y'all, I know this depends on the circle. I'd say I don't personally hate him, but I know a lot of people, especially in Boston, hate Kyrie Irving. I think he's up there for some people. I gotta go with Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid's up there for a lot of people. I don't personally see it, but I know a lot of people see it. A lot of people hate him because they think he foul baits, and that's just basketball. I'm gonna go. So I've got 2 basketball players. Did I say NFL players yet? Oh man, that's a lot of them. I'm gonna go with Mahomes. I don't personally hate him, but Trey and I have some mutual friends that we know, like their whole personality is hating Patrick Mahomes, and then I'm gonna go with Nick Saban, because I think a lot of people hate Nick Saban. So That's my 4. Do I have a 5th? Let me see. Fifth. Oh, let me just say Ben Simmons, just because I know people hate Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons. That's my top 5. Now you don't necessarily have to have a top 5, Trey. I know I just said hit players, not players.
I'm gonna say, despite how there's this group of people called LeBron sexuals. Despite the love for LeBron, he is also one of the most hated players in sports. Because of how good he is, but there's the lore around LeBron of, first it was he's not clutch. People said he was soft, now it's the conversation about whether he's the GOAT or not. So people hate on him. Right now, Angel Reese is one of the more hated players for some very wrong reasons. Obviously, whether you want to talk about basketball, that's one thing, but in her case, unfortunately, it's a race thing in a lot of cases. Draymond Green is up there right now. I think, luckily, some things have kind of subsided. If you're a Warriors fan, you probably got some major beef with Draymond Green, given kind of how he seemingly kind of,
broke up the
Warriors, right?
Yeah, if you want to hear Trey and I's thing about that, go to 3 episodes ago?
Yeah, I think it was 4 episodes ago. Who else? To go back to some players who are not active, you had guys like T.O. Donovan McNabb was immensely hated.
Yeah.
I think after the fact, people got love for him, but he still has even amongst Philly fans or Eagles fans, there's definitely a mixed bag of people who liked him, people who loved him, and people who just hated him.
Who else?
I'm
a McNabb stan, so.
Huh?
I said I'm a McNabb stan, so.
Yeah. I'm definitely in that crowd. I liked him as a player, but for the people the reasons that the people who hate him, I'm like, okay, I kind of see your point in some cases.
Well, most of his hate is he wasn't Ricky Williams. That was his hate. He was a victim of.
It was I think it was something that he wasn't Ricky Williams, and also too that he wasn't, especially on the latter half of his career, the way it was two things. One, the way he kind of fell off because of injuries, and then because of those injuries and his response to the hate that he got, and then going to now the Commanders, but at the time the Redskins, to play with Deshaun Jackson. There was a lot of hate that went to him for that as well.
Yeah.
But let me think. Who else? I feel like I got one or two more. In baseball, A-Rod for sure. Who else?
I'm surprised you didn't say Barry Bonds.
Yeah, I guess Barry Bonds was a hated player. OJ Simpson.
We don't need to go there. That was before I talked.
We don't have to talk about that. What else? Who's another hated player? Oh, active player, Patrick Beverly. Although I think a lot of people love him for his I guess his craftiness and his scrappiness on the court. A lot of people hate him for that. Who's another? Oh, here's a good one. Zaza Pachulia. Especially if you're a Warriors one, because was it Zaza, or was it who was the one who stuck his foot out?
That was Zaza.
Who stuck his foot out and injured Clay. So yeah, those are some of the people that I can think of.
Okay. Well, look, man, we're getting to the closing portion of this show, but we gotta do our shout out segment. So I'm gonna start here. I want to shout out the NFL, even though I didn't see it because church. But the Flag Football Championship seems like it went off without a hitch, and the people that got to see, I believe this was the girls portion of it. So, shout out for the NFL, putting their money when their mouth is. The Eagles have been a big donor to this, getting the flag football league going on the girls' side and the boys' side, obviously, but more love for the women lately for the girls' side of it. And I don't know who won, but it seemed like it was a big time thing. And I'm really happy that, the girls get a chance to shine. They play football too. And, they can do it without judgment. As Trey and I know growing up, a lot of girls that play football got that tomboyish whole thing. We don't need to run into old 90s and early 2000s nicknames. Some of y'all know if you were a millennial or older Gen Z, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We don't need to get off on it. We don't need to go off on it. But, it's good to see. It's good to see that them come up. So shout out to the NFL because, we do give the NFL a lot of heat. But the flag football thing and ESPN putting it on where people could see it, I think it should have been on ABC. But, obviously we all know what happened on Sunday afternoon. So it might have been preempted had it been on a regular ABC channel. So this might have been a good thing that it wasn't on more readily available television. So shout out to the NFL for that. I'm trying to think. WNBA, shout out for that. Really great All-Star game. Team USA versus Team WNBA. Really great All-Star game. Really great All-Star weekend. I believe that's it for me. What about you? Oh, shout out to, even though the Phillies have been up and down, still got the best record. Probably need to do some things in the trade deadline, but good on the Phillies for still having the best record, despite the fact that I guess Ranger is broken. I really don't know. I'll leave it to the baseball people to tell me if that's true or not. But Trey, you got anything?
Yeah, I want to say shout out. I just was reading this the other day. But I wanted to say shout out to Brandon Graham, long-time Eagle. But we just talked about the most hated. He's one of the most loved, in particular in Philly. But he's recently just announced, I think it was actually just today, that this will be his last season. So shout out to him. Like he's one of those players. I remember when he was drafted, like I literally was, I at that time I wasn't really as much in the sports as I am now. But for whatever reason, I decided to watch the draft that night. And I remember when he was drafted, and I was like, okay, it's an interesting pick. I didn't know too much about him. He struggled early under Andy Reid. And then something happened. It was similar to what happened with Jason Kelce. Something happened. Jason Kelce's thing was he was too small. Brandon Graham just wasn't getting a lot of pressure early in his career because he's a smaller guy again. But something happened at one point in his career, and boom, and he's probably an NFL Hall of Famer and is definitely an Eagles Hall of Famer. So shout out to him, and that's my only shout out for tonight.
All right. He's not him, she's not her, and they aren't them. Everyone's favorite segment. I've only got one, and I think y'all know who I'm going with. My he's not him and they aren't them. Warner Brothers Discovery / and my he's not him. David Zaslav. I keep saying it. If I'm Warner Brothers Discovery shareholder, I'm leading a rebellion because I think David Zaslav needs to be fired. The same thing happened to Dick Ebersol when he lost the NBA. He wasn't long for that position after that, being chairman of NBC Sports, where he lost the NBA. The same thing needs to happen because right now, if you're a Warner Brothers sports person, all you really have, you've got the college sports, you got the Big East, which you share ironically with NBC and Fox. You're going to have some of the college football games through the partnership with ESPN. But I mean, you're really lacking in the professional basketball department. You're going to have to lean into hockey and baseball, which are both really great sports. And like Trey has alluded to, we know somebody on that marketing team in the NWB. So shout out to him. And he's probably going to make a lot of money now, but it's only those two are both, for lack of a better term, like both very, very niche sports. I like hockey. I somewhat like baseball, but it's not basketball. So, I think David Zaslav is the ultimate. He's not him. I mean, what a week, man. Your channel's about to be the wrestling, sports, and movie and throwback TV channel. And that's not what you want to be known for as a big time CEO after 2 or 3 years after a merger. So David Zaslav, I I wouldn't expect to be in that executive chair too much longer, bro. That's why he's not him and my they aren't them, man.
All right, so I've got 3. My they aren't them, I guess, is they aren't them / he's not, well, no, he's not him, is Jerry Jones. Like, bro, what are you doing? You got a top, I don't know, 6 quarterback in the league, top 3 or 4 receiver in the league, re-sign them, right? Make it happen. If you want your team to have success, are you obviously Jerry Jones must be dumb in some sense. My other he's not him is, I mean, we already knew what happened with the situation just because, free agency, NFL free agency stuff is reported to us, but we didn't know the details. Is Joe Schoen, the New York Giants GM, and with Hard Knocks being out, we kind of gotten some more of the details. You had that phone call recorded between the two of Saquon Barkley and Joe Schoen, where Joe Schoen literally said, go out and find some other offers and come back and then we'll talk. And Saquon was kind of like, I mean, you already know how I feel about playing here. So like, which was to say, I want to play here. Just give me an offer that, give me an offer and let's negotiate. And that's why, long story short, that's why Saquon Barkley is on the Eagles now. And then my other one was going to be, Lord have mercy, not Chauncey Billups. Why am I thinking of Chauncey Billups? Lord have mercy.
Gilbert Arenas?
Gilbert Arenas, yes.
We didn't talk about that. I'm glad you brought it up.
And,
I knew it was somebody else.
And if you don't know, so he has a podcast. I can't remember what the name of the podcast is right now off the top of my head, but in his podcast, I guess it was on Friday. It was
Saturday when
Saturday podcast after the South Sudan game. He made some comments about South Sudan and their players, and essentially he was, in other words, what he was saying was South Sudan is a bunch of bums, and the Team USA should have dominated them. Whether or not that is okay, so there's a problem with how he said that, which is, yes, Team USA probably should have dominated South Sudan, but to watch that game and to just act it as if we watched a bunch of bums play on South Sudan is just stupid, right? We saw at least 2 or 3 players on that team, which I honestly would not be surprised if they're interested that they wouldn't get looks in the NBA next season because of how they played against Team USA, and just specifically in that one game. So come on, Gilbert. I mean, Gilbert is always throwing out wild takes, but that in particular was just kind of like, come on, man.
Joel Embiid being like, yeah, Africa has done big things for basketball. I'm here. And I'm just like, how can you embarrass yourself like that? This is why I say not all former players deserve a platform in media. I'm just saying. But that is, that's our show, man. That's our show for today. Thank you, Trey, for standing in Morgan's stead. Expect to see Trey and other people soon because, like I said, Morgan's on that Olympics grind for the next 2 weeks, starting tomorrow. But on France time, Friday to what is August? 2 weeks from then, so August 11th, whatever that last weekend is, second weekend in August. Shout out to that. Obviously, those that don't know, don't listen to the show. I have a birthday coming up on Friday, so this is Kylan week. It's been great. Like I said, thank you to Trey. Before we go, Trey, well, why don't you tell them where they can find you again, man?
So as Kylan mentioned at the start of the show, Mr. Taylor, III, so MRTAYLOR, and then 3 I's, Mr. Taylor the Third on Instagram. I will actually spell it out this time. My Twitter, even though I don't really use it that often, it's my full name. My first name is Clarence. My last name Taylor. So my Twitter is my first name backwards, my last name backwards. So it's EC. Well, I'm not even going to try to spell it backwards because I'm going to look like a fool. But if you can spell Clarence and Taylor backwards, just put those 2 together, and that's my Twitter. And then go check out my YouTube channel. It'd probably be pretty hard to find it, but Mr. Taylor Movies. Got a couple short films on there if you want to check that out. So yeah.
Cool. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Look up Morgan. She's doing a lot. She's doing a lot right now, like I said, with the Olympics. But hit her up, give her some encouragement. Soccer, rugby kind of kicked her behind. Not kicked her behind, but doing that today kind of made it so she couldn't come today. But hopefully she'll be able to get on after that. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, follow us at Kylan W. Watson on Twitter/X. Mr. Taylor III. Mr. Taylor Movies on YouTube. And, definitely check this out. Continue to follow the channel. Check me out on lastwordonsports.com, the Philly Tribune, WatsonSportsTakes.com. Obviously on this podcast every week unless something happens. But yeah, man, like I said, thanks to Trey. Y'all have a great one.
And also don't forget, like, comment, subscribe to the channel, but also share the podcast, share it on your social media, whatever it might be, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, share the link, get your friends to watch it. We would love to, we do have a live feed of comments. So, get your friends if they want to watch live, we're paying attention to whatever comments come through, and, we'll react to comments as they come in. So definitely share the podcast as well to interact with it live.
Amen. All right, y'all. Deuces.
Peace.
Enjoy CFB and Madden in a few weeks.